Greenlight Network presents Football Time.
Hey, and welcome to the Football Time Show. Week 3 of the NFL season is upon us, and with us, as always, is Achilles Reign. Achilles, are you ready to get into NFL Week 3 and win some money here this week?
Yeah, man, listen, we got college football going on today. I'm really pumped up about some of the games, but we're here to talk pros, so let's get into it.
All right, let's kick things off with the Thursday night football game. Browns 29, Steelers 17. I think the game played out a little bit like we probably both thought. Sort of defensive game with... It was okay quarterback play, and Nick Chubb sort of dominated the game, which is what they thought. Browns got the win. Probably should be 3-0, 2-1 now. What did you make of the Browns-Steelers game?
I do have to admit that I'm a little impressed with the way they've been managing their situation, having their quarterback being suspended for the first, basically most of the half of the season, and then some. But I think they're doing a pretty good job with Jacoby. He's managing the game. It seems like it's not too much for him, at least in within this small time frame that we've been able to see him. But the defense has been playing pretty good. They seem to kind of have their moments when they're playing a lot better than we're used to seeing. But it's kind of what we expect from them. We expect a really heavy run attack from them and pretty solid defense, which is what they've been doing, which is why they've had some success. But they're about to hit a little tougher set of their schedule, and we'll really see what they have going forward. But if things keep going the way that they're going, they're definitely in a good spot, especially once their quarterback comes back.
Yeah, that was probably the best game I'd seen Jacoby Brissett play in probably about 4 or 5 years since he first took over when Luck got hurt for the Colts. So that was a good game by him. Steelers on the other side defensively continue to, I think, look porous. After that first game with the Bengals, I didn't think that he looked great in that New England game. They managed their way through it and held New England to about 16, but, those are two teams who aren't going to score a ton anyway. And then, again, versus the Browns, they were giving up passes to Brissett, and they were giving up runs to Chubb. You got to shut one of those down. I can understand the Chubb. The giving up wide-open receivers and Amari Cooper, who basically hadn't caught a ball all season long, breaks them down pretty good in this one. What do you make of the Steelers here? We talked about it on Tuesday about going to Pickett. I think I'm starting to push a little bit towards that way. I don't think they can contend in this season. They aren't good enough defensively to sort of stay in games, especially without T.J. Watt. And T.J. Watt shouldn't be make so much of a difference where you're either a top 3 level defense or 20 or below level defense here. So it's getting close to probably sort of thinking about rebuilding this team, despite the Steelers not really rebuilding all that often.
Well, I got to say that I wasn't expecting the loss of Watt to be this drastic. I know it's a huge loss, but I didn't think that it would completely alter this defense at that point. What we're seeing from the Steelers defense now is the offense is going to have to step up their game. They're going to have to be able to put up more points, especially early on, try to keep the defense off the field. And that's probably their best shot at being able to win games just based off the way that they've been playing lately. As far as the Pickett thing is concerned, I still think you got a little bit of time, but time is definitely starting to run out. We talked about the Browns and the way they've been playing. You also have the Ravens, who, if they hadn't melted that last week against Miami, we'd be probably talking about, all right, well, maybe it's time you start thinking about an actual change now. But if it continues going this way, you're just going to start getting a wider and wider gap between standings for this division. And that's when you really have to take into consideration whether you bring this guy in and get him some playing time. But I think as of now, we're going into week 3. We still have some time, but it's definitely getting closer and closer to decision time.
All right, let's get into the games. Let's kick it off with a barn burner in Chicago. The Houston Texans at the Chicago Bears. 2.5 point spread for the Chicago Bears. It seems to be fluctuating between 2.5 and 3, so probably shop around and see where you get it. You know, if I can get that 3 number, I'm pretty heavy on the Houston Texans. I think they'll, they've shown that they play good football, whereas I think what we've seen from the Bears, they have yet to show me offensively, other than, basically 2 plays in that San Francisco game, and I guess that opening drive versus the Green Bay Packers, and from that point on, it's basically been nothing offensively. So I know the Texans, and I'm going to use, this double road games as a thing in my favor. And then this time I'm going to use it and be like, it's not going to make a difference that the Texans were in Denver and then come to Chicago. I just think the season means more to them right now from what I've judged from the Chicago Bears. They just look to be sort of trying to go through the motions on this season. What did you make of this Houston Texans-Chicago Bears game?
Well, I'll tell you what, I haven't seen anything from Chicago that leads me to believe that they're going to be a team that's going to be able to contend with most of these teams. Now, I know that Houston isn't considered by many to be a mid-tier team, even, or, let alone an elite team. But I still think that they play gritty enough and hard enough that they can contend with this Chicago team. And I actually think I do have one play for this game. That's about it for this game. I wasn't too crazy with my picks here, but I'll tell you right now that I was really tempted. I think in my notes I wrote, I'm tempted to take Houston +3. And then I wrote on there, screw it, I'll take it. So I got Houston at +3 here. I really was a little shocked to see them as an underdog. I feel like they've played a lot harder. I know that Chicago has a big win against San Francisco, but it was week 1. It was really soggy and nasty conditions. It was first game for their young quarterback, who is now out for the season. But I've seen a lot more from Houston as far as their play is concerned. So in a 3-point spread here, I think that the smart play would be to take the points and take Houston here.
Yeah, it's an interesting week because I definitely liked more stuff than I liked last week, but it seems to be I either like games that are probably trap games like this one where everybody's jumping on Houston, getting those 3 points, and the Bears end up grogging one out, or I'm just taking a really crappy team because they're getting, points. So I'm either on the wrong side of the trap or just taking a crappy team. And I'm with you. I'm on that. If you find the Houston Texans +3, I think you grab that. I'm on the Houston Texans +3 for 250. I got a couple player props in there. Brandon Cooks touchdown +160. This Bears secondary hasn't looked great. I thought the Packers receivers were open a good bit there, so I look for Cooks to catch a touchdown there at +160. Darnell Mooney, touchdown +185 for the Bears here. He hasn't gotten going at all. You're sort of seeing a little bit of the same thing on the CeeDee Lamb side of things, as you move into that number 1 receiver role and you get more attention, especially on a team like this where basically there is no one in the pass game to take serious but him. You're getting a lot of coverage that way. You got a quarterback who's probably scared to force balls into coverage or even look for you if you're in double or triple coverage there. So, but this Texans team, it might be the game where he can at least get going a little bit. They've played 2 pretty solid secondaries and defenses. So Darnell Mooney +185 for a touchdown on that. I got Davis Mills over 1.5 passing touchdowns. I go into, I think this Bears defense hasn't been as good. Mills has been throwing the ball really well the first 2 weeks of the season. So 1.5 passing touchdowns +165 on that one. And then I'm going Brandon Cooks over 58.5 receiving yards -120 on that one. I just think this is one of those sneaky games where Brandon Cooks gets his yards, and then you look at the end of the season and are like, oh, he has 1,000 yards receiving. And it's games like these where he takes advantage of, sort of getting yards and hitting 1 or 2 deep balls. So I look for that in this game. Anything else on this one you see anything else you sort of like? Can you talk yourself anyway in taking a Bears play, at -3? I couldn't find a edge where you'd be like, yeah, I really want the Bears -3. That just seemed like a sucker bet to me.
Well, see, the only way that I could see myself taking this Bears team at -3, going up against Houston, is that pass rush. Now I know that they haven't been, quite up to standard as of this season so far, but the Bears do have the ability to create an elite pass rush, especially, with Robert Quinn there. He's probably one of the best right now. Really, really underrated actually, because we don't talk about him a lot. Yet every year he seems to just tally up the amount of sacks. But that'd probably be the only way. If you were to tell me this pass rush is going to be on today, then I could see them causing some fits for Mills, and then maybe you have Chicago covering here -3. But just off the old eyeball test, I'm taking Houston here. Like I said, I feel like they've played harder. They've played a little nastier, and this early in the season with as many upsets as we've had so far, 2 weeks in, I think that's a smarter play.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our next game, and we're going to Nashville. The Raiders visit the Tennessee Titans. Las Vegas is actually favored by 2.5, 2 points, probably depending where you look here. This is one of those where I didn't end up taking a team that I wanted, because I think the play is probably the Raiders here, especially what we've seen from Tennessee 2 weeks in a row. But I just couldn't be aggressive enough as the Raiders as road favorites here, because I just haven't liked what I've seen for 2 weeks from them either. I can dismiss the Chargers game as opening week, a little sloppiness. That week 2 game, that struck me as a team that is bad as well. To go up 20-0 and then completely collapse in that second half, it's just, I didn't want to be real aggressive as a road favorite on the Raiders, even though I think this is a team that's probably, these are games they're going to win, and I think the Titans, we're about to see a really, really bad fall here where they might sink all the way to sort of that bottom tier of the league. So how did you look at this one?
When I was looking at this game, I tried again to look at the last 2 games, and realistically speaking, I know that the Raiders lost that last game. They were up though; they had a chance of winning if they would have been able to put it away properly, implementing the run a little bit better, which they haven't really focused on too much this season. It seems like they're really aggressive about getting Devonta Adams his targets, which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing long term. But there was a reason why I had this team in our preseason rankings as possibly either 3rd or 4th in this division. Now, obviously, Denver's making me look even dumber now, but it's because I just didn't know if they were going to be able to put a consistent front. Just I don't know. We saw too many, because when we expected them to do bad last season, they did good, and when we started to flip our opinion of them and started taking them, they started to do bad. So I'm not 100% sold on the Raiders, but when I look at Tennessee, I feel like the Raiders are just a better team overall, just talent wise. So I got a couple plays here that I like. I like the Raiders at -2.5. I think it's pretty reasonable. Again, it's just talent-wise. I feel like they could definitely win that game by at least 3 points. Two more plays that I've got for this game. Devonta Adams has been targeted a lot, and I know that he's been trying to distribute the ball a little bit more evenly with Renfro and Waller in that. But I like Devonta Adams' first touchdown at +800. As much as he's been targeted, I feel like this is a really good. It's got really good odds, and not to mention the fact that Tennessee's secondary has been pretty abysmal so far. You saw last week they allowed passes left and right all over the field. So I feel like +800's got pretty good value. But even if you don't want to go that risky, there's a Devonta Adams anytime touchdown at +105, just about even money. So I feel like that's another good play.
Yeah, it's interesting. I got 3 bets on this game I'm looking at, and they're actually all 3 Titans bet. I don't know if that sort of played into my head, prop-wise, player prop-wise, that I liked 3 Tennessee things, and that's what sort of pushed me away from the Raiders, or it's just the Raiders' overall inconsistent play, and I want to see it, for a full game at least once before I dive in there, but I think Derrick Henry, if we're going to see anything from him this season, it's going to be versus this Raiders team who has looked porous on defense. So I got Derrick Henry 125 plus rushing yards at plus 430 on that. It's just one of those things. It's probably time to either Derrick to show out, or it's probably on that cusp where you're like, Derrick's not Derrick anymore. So 125 plus rushing yards for Henry at plus 430. I liked the way they did target Robert Woods. If you want to take anything away from Monday. So I got Robert Woods touchdown plus 240, and I got Robert Woods over 42.5 receiving yards. You've seen that Oakland Raiders secondary. Tennessee should be able to take advantage of it. So 3 bets for me on this one. Woods over 42.5 receiving yards. Woods anytime touchdown plus 240. That's probably the best value on the board, especially since the Titans actually like to throw a lot more in the red zone than you probably think, especially off play action. And then Derrick Henry 125 plus rushing yards at plus 430 for me on those three sort of player props. No game plays in this one. I can't quite trust the Raiders. Maybe by Sunday I talk myself into it, but it just doesn't seem quite there. Anything else for you on that game?
No, that's pretty much it.
All right. Kansas City Chiefs at the Indianapolis Colts, and I talked about, either this week seeming to be able to take bad teams or taking teams that are probably on the wrong side of the trap. This is probably more a trap game on the Kansas City side of things, but I'm on taking the bad team side of things here. Michael Pittman will be back, and, if you're giving yourself any reason why you're taking the Colts and probably the 6.5 here, this is pretty much do or die, must win. Kansas City, I think now that we're 2 weeks in, you look at it and when we did the preseason, you're looking at that division and you're like, oh, Kansas City's going to have a couple threats, and they've already beaten the Chargers. Herbert's dealing with broken ribs. We've watched both the Raiders and Denver. I don't think either of us are going to put them in that class with the Chiefs. So I think this goes back to, more the same. The Chiefs can sort of navigate their way through this division without that much resistance. The Colts, on the other hand, this is it. I think you go to 0-3 and basically look like crap, for 3 straight weeks. There's not a lot coming back from that. The offensive line has looked porous. I looked up some stuff on PFF for like player ratings, and for what they're paying for that offensive line and what they've produced, it's pretty much unacceptable. They haven't found a way to get Jonathan Taylor involved all that much, especially in the last game versus the Jags. And, Pittman's going to be back, so I assume they will have some sort of receiving core, but basically nothing's gone right. And then, we talked about it on Tuesday with the defense not playing well. So they're at home after starting 2 weeks on the road. It's sort of time to put up. So getting 6.5 for me, it's just sort of one of those auto, bets. 6.5 points, do or die game. You just take the points there. How did you look at this one?
I mean, I kind of like your logic here, but I'm actually on the opposite side of the spectrum. I just, I was big on the Colts coming into this season, and I thought with Matt
play football.
Yes, that's actually what the issue is. I thought with the addition of Matt Ryan, a veteran, a savvy veteran who, in my opinion, was a lot better than the previous quarterback they tried there. I thought that they'd be able to play a lot better, Jonathan Taylor, and that offensive line, that defense that was pretty stout last season. I thought they'd be able to make some noise. I did not expect at any point, given the first 2 games of the season, that they'd be 0-2 or 1-1. 1-1 is the correct way. But it's just, I've seen nothing from this team. The quarterback play seems very timid, very, very held back. Even the running attack, it seems like they're trying to go after the pass first and they're trying to run second. And that's not the way this team is built. This team is built to run first. They got a little bit going last week with Taylor, but it wasn't until later on that game, and they got completely blown out of the water. So it was kind of pointless at that time. So I'll tell you my plays here. Okay, I got a few plays actually. My first one here is Kansas City minus the 5.5. All right. And I know it seems like a lot, but Kansas City's been on fire. They seem to spread the ball just around everywhere. They got Hilaire. They got the nice big target at tight end. They've got a Schuster. They got a couple weapons out there, but they spread the ball pretty evenly. So I like that. So 5.5, Kansas City. I've got Kansas City's first half at minus 3.5. I do like the fact that Michael Pittman's coming back. I feel like it's going to add a little bit of depth to that wide receiver corps. So I do have Michael Pittman anytime touchdown at plus 160. I have the Chiefs to score over 29.5 points at plus 105. And I have Indy to score under 20.5 points at minus 115. Oh, sorry, plus 115. Plus
right.
115.
I got the Colts plus the 6.5 for 250. So, I'm just going to ride, that home dog number, almost a touchdown. You might just want to even look at bumping that up to the full touchdown, and get on that key number. I have a really, really big bet. Jonathan Taylor, anytime touchdown at minus 155. I have 750 on that. Yeah, I think their focus is going to be at least getting him going in this game. We've seen the Chiefs be hot and cold defensively, especially against the run. So we'll see how they come out with this. I think Jonathan Taylor will be heavy focused. Anytime touchdown, minus 155, 750. And then I got Chris Jones, sack over 0.25. So even if he gets a half sack, you win that bet at plus 205. I think that's really, really good value with the way the interior and basically the exterior of the Colts line has struggled so far this year. And with the sitting duck that is Matt Ryan in that pocket, you can't tell me Chris Jones isn't going to break through once or twice and be able to at least lay hands on Matt Ryan. So I thought the value in, that sack prop at plus 205, 0.205 sacks, just is really, really good value. I didn't put this in my parlays, but I was looking at it. It's probably a way to sort of counter the Colts bet overall if you sort of want to balance things out, and you might hit both. Patrick Mahomes, 300-plus yards passing. If you watch the Colts defense, they've been getting crushed in the secondary. And then Travis Kelce. The Colts are still without their big-time linebackers, and Kelce should have a field day in this one. So you take Kelce over receiving yards, Mahomes 300-plus yards passing, and same-game parlay that. I didn't put it in my parlays, but it might be a way if you want to bet the Colts, and then you sort of have a secondary bet that's not the Chiefs out and out, but at least you might be able to split both and win both on that case. But that's what I got in that game. Let's move on to our next game in this one, and this is the big showdown for the week. Buffalo Bills, Miami Dolphins. Bills come in at 5-point favorites here. And, I talked about it last week, how I think as long as they keep giving the Bills, under touchdown, under 10, I'm going to be real aggressive on it. Now, I got a bunch of Bills bets here, but I did some sort of maneuvering to sort of protect myself. So I'm not going after the 5, mostly because a handful of defensive guys are either questionable or have been ruled out. And, from what we've seen from this Miami team, you don't want a lot of your secondary guys being ruled out. You saw what happened when Baltimore started to lose some guys, and then they had to put rookies in their place. They all got dusted, and the same sort of situation is happening here. So let me give your analysis on this game, and then I'll give my sort of weird, complicated betting in this game, because I got some weird ones on this one.
Well, this is one of those games that had me really confused as far as which way I was going to lean. Obviously, the pendulum is swinging more towards Buffalo here, with them being the favorites. But I don't think we can discount Miami that easily, as I mentioned, during the review of last week's show. They've actually been really good over the last few years, and it's kind of been a back and forth, whether it's the defense or the offense that plays well. Now they've got a lot of weapons on offense. You're talking about two speedy wide receivers with Waddle and Hill on the outside, and Tua's been doing a good job at getting them the ball. And it seems like they have that confidence about them where it doesn't matter if they're down. They know that with that kind of speed, they can get back in the game anytime. So I don't have a play for that spread, just because I feel like these two teams are actually a lot closer matched than we give them credit for. But that Buffalo team scares me. They've got an incredible offense. The defense was really good. Now, I did have a bet that I made. This was prior to knowing that they were going to have some secondary guys out, but I'm going to read it anyways because it's already been made. So I'll tell you what my plays are. I feel there's going to be a defensive game. If the Bills defense shows up, there's a good shot that Miami's not going to get a lot of points on the board here. And Miami's defense is good enough to at least limit what this Buffalo team can do on offense. So I've got under 53.5. I've got Tua over half interception, so basically just one pick at minus 105. That was the one I made prior to knowing the secondary was having issues. But I'm going to roll with it anyways. I've got Singletary over 39.5 rushing yards at minus 110. And then I've got Tua under 1.5 passing touchdowns at minus at plus 110. And again, that's simply because I just feel that Bills defense, if that secondary can hold up long enough with all those guys injured now, if they can hold up, then I feel like this has a chance to be a low scoring affair.
Yeah. I'm going to do an alternate line once again with the Buffalo Bills. 13.5 plus 249. I'm going to put it right under that 14-point number. So if the Buffalo Bills continue to just wax these teams, but I'm a little nervous about this Dolphins team sort of getting blown out and then putting a couple scores on them. So I basically made 4 quarter bets here. I took the Bills in the first, second, and third quarter at -1 in the first and third quarter, and -1.5 in the third quarter at 125 in each quarter. So I got Bills first quarter, Bills second quarter, Bills third quarter, and then I got Dolphins +1 in the fourth quarter at -120. So basically, I assume the Bills will win a quarter or two. And from what we've seen from this Dolphins team, they seem to just wear teams down by, not necessarily running the ball, but running team secondary and linebackers to death with their receivers and Gesicki and, their running backs coming out of the backfield, and teams get a little bit worn down. You mix that with, the heat that's still being produced in Miami. So basically Buffalo's going to go from not cold climate, but mild climate into the sweat and humidity in Miami. You mentioned the secondary injuries. That probably will take effect. So I like that Miami fourth quarter, and the Bills, you take those first 3 quarters, plus my alternate line. And then I got one player bet. We saw Reggie Gilliam, the fullback, get some play. Dawson Knox is a little banged up. So Gilliam was still 15-1 anytime touchdown. They threw him basically 2 red zone plays. They had him on that wheel route where he was wide open and probably should have gotten the touchdown. Granted, the next play they hit Diggs on the long one. So, you don't seize your opportunity. Somebody else is going to seize it on that team and score a touchdown. And then you had him score that touchdown on the little leak out screen in the first quarter. So I think with Knox banged up and maybe not playing, they might utilize Gilliam down there a little bit. It seems like Allen likes to throw to him, and Ken Dorsey is always, if you go back to his playing days all the way for the Miami Hurricanes, he used to love Najee Davenport, the fullback, out of the backfield and running plays for him. So Ken calling the plays and, saw some diagnosis of that. I thought 15-1 anytime touchdown, well worth, even just a $10 bet there for that one. So I got 62.50 on Reggie Gilliam on that touchdown. Should be a good game. game, but a little bummed that the secondary guys for the Bills banged up. You probably aren't going to get the sort of full head-to-head matchup here. All right, let's go to Lions and Vikings. This one I'm interested on your take. Vikings are 6-point favorites here. Lions have not yet been on the road this season, and they've looked good at home, scoring a bunch of points. What are we getting from the Vikings, the team that couldn't defend and threw a bunch of red zone interceptions, or are we getting the, Kevin O'Connell is the greatest coach of all time, and Jordan Jefferson is going to break the all-time receiving single-season record in this game. Which one do you want to hedge on this week for the Minnesota Vikings?
Well, let's see. This is my favorite Jekyll and Hyde team of all time. So they played horrible last week, which means they're due for an amazing game this week. I really don't know what to expect, to be honest with you, but I am excited to see it. I think the Detroit team has actually been really exciting to watch. Even though they don't have a lot of big name players, they have a lot of potential stars on that team. And I'll tell you what my plays are. I was tempted to take Detroit +6 because I feel like they play tough. Just kind of like I spoke about Houston, they've been playing really tough. So I like them. I just don't like them enough. I don't feel confident enough. I want to see at least one more week of them playing that way for me to feel comfortable to take them, even as a dog. So I don't have a play for the +6, but I do like it. These are the ones I do have. I have St. Brown over 69.5 receiving yards at -115. I feel like this Minnesota defense last week got torched, and going up against a guy like St. Brown, who's been doing it pretty much for the first two games of the season, and even last year, going into the last games of the season, he was balling out, and he's still doing so. So I like that one. Jared Goff, this is a little weird one, okay? Jared Goff over 2.5 rushing yards. Okay, now I know Jared Goff is not known for his mobility or his athleticism, but he can run. And if it gets to a point where his receivers are covered and there's good coverage play out there, he might sneak out of there, try to avoid a sack. And I mean, it's just 3 yards. So it's not too crazy. I think at -115, it's not too bad. Another one here, Jared Goff over 1.5 passing touchdowns. Like I said, this secondary got torched last week. I really like the way Goff has been playing. A little timid still for Goff. That's the way Goff plays, but he's definitely getting more aggressive as the season's progressing. And my last one here is a Swift anytime touchdown at +100.
Yeah. Both these defenses have given up a ton on the rushing side of things. When I was making these, they didn't have the DeAndre Swift rushing props up because he was still, on the questionable thing. But I would suggest taking DeAndre Swift over rushing props from what I've seen from this Minnesota Vikings defense when those get posted. But on the other end, I'm on Dalvin Cook, 110-plus rushing yards at +300. I think they'll utilize him more after, pretty much, new offensive coordinator, new head coach, doing the scarecrow hand and letting Kirk Cousins run thing and throw red zone picks. I think they'll pull back and go back to a little bit of the basics of handing the ball to Dalvin Cook and not putting so much on Kirk Cousins there. So I think Cook will have a good game, but also I think Swift will have a really good game. They just didn't have those odds up, but definitely have some DeAndre Swift over sort of rushing yard prop, maybe rushing receiving props, but Cook 110-plus rushing yards +300, and then Irv Smith Jr. touchdown +195. They seemed to go to him pretty good in the red zone last week. It was about the only person it seemed like Kirk could complete passes to. And I look for the Lions to struggle a little bit here. I didn't bet on the spread. I really want to take the Vikings here because I think basically I think they got overhyped in their game versus Philly, and everybody jumped on that bandwagon. And now I think after everybody watching that game, they probably are all overhyped on the Lions after watching those two games and down on the Vikings again. So I think there's value in this line, but basically everybody I trust to sort of analyze this game are all sort of either don't bet on this stupid game or are on the Detroit side of things. So I just can't quite pull the trigger. just yet. I was sort of waiting and seeing if I probably could hear anyone sort of be like, oh yeah, take the Vikings, they're going to blow this game out, to sort of push me off that ledge and comfort me and be, it's okay to take the Vikings. They occasionally do win these kind of games.
Well, I did tell you that I kind of liked Detroit at +6, so maybe that gives you the confidence to take Minnesota.
No, you're the one who's pushing me away. I need the comforting that it's okay to take the Vikings as 6-point favorites. So.
Yeah, this is the guy who trusted the Vikings to be able to keep up with Philly last week. So, yeah.
All right, let's go to Ravens Patriots, and quite honestly, this is one of the games I got no player bets on. Because basically I don't know who's going to be playing running back for the Ravens. Dobbins has practiced this week, but I don't quite know how much they're going to utilize him. It'd probably be pretty cautious. Secondary injuries for the Ravens scares me off. I do think if you take anything, it's probably take the Ravens minus the 3 here, but I didn't want to take them as road favorites coming off that weird collapse, and there's just nothing that can get me to trust the Patriots here. So I was basically across on everything on this game. The only thing I could say is I probably lean Ravens, but I don't think I'm going to put anything on this game. What did you see in this one?
I've got a couple picks here, and it's mostly because I feel that after last week, that meltdown in Miami, I feel like Baltimore's coming back a little more aggressive, a little more assertive. Now, it does scare me that they're going up against a Bill Belichick defense because he's got a really good a track record of making quarterbacks look silly. But I'm going to roll with what I've seen on tape here, so I'm going to go with that Baltimore at -3. I've got two more prop bets. I've got Bateman anytime touchdown at +185. I feel like if they're going to connect, especially in the passing game, it's probably going to be to Bateman. And my other one here, my last one for this game is Lamar anytime touchdown at +155. Obviously, we know Lamar's ability to be able to run the ball. I think that any week where he's going up against a non-elite team is pretty much almost a must play for him to do anytime touchdown. And at 155, I feel like there's pretty good value there for a guy who runs the ball as much as he does.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's probably some smart plays in there. I was sort of in wait and see mode for the Ravens. I didn't want to be real aggressive in this one, and then I'd be stunned unless something changes if I'm ever real big on anything on the Patriots side, because one, player props wise, I don't know who to take on that sort of thing other than, I've been taking the Mac Jones interception, which has paid off pretty well. But other than that,
I thought you were going to get another one of those today.
I thought about it, but I was like, maybe let it go a week. And after watching the Ravens secondary, there might be one team that Mac Jones might not throw an interception versus. It might be them. Receiver-wise, I don't know what I'm getting out of any of those guys. It's sort of just lottery ticket whether one of them hits a big play or not. Running back-wise, it just Damian Harris, might not be all that healthy. I don't know what you trust out of Ramondre Stevenson, so it's hard to bet on anything New England, and I was in wait-and-see mode for the Ravens. Let's move on to the next game. Cincinnati Bengals, New York Jets, and you don't want to overreact to the New York Jets after last week, but then I'm going to overreact to the New York Jets last week.
Because that's your boy Flacco.
Because it's my boy Flacco. Not so much because I think they're all that great. Cincinnati has been unimpressive for 2 games in a row. And basically, the 2 games you've watched the Steelers since they beat the Bengals, nothing has shown me the Steelers. You should not be close if you're a good team with the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. And then, I just thought 6 was too much. Jets fans are completely insane in thinking they're going to a Super Bowl because they made, a 0.1% chance comeback. If anyone could salt away a minute 30 and a 2-touchdown lead, we probably would not be in love with the Jets as much as everyone is. But I just thought +6 from what we've seen from this Bengals team, and +6 on the road in a back-to-back road situation where the Bengals are playing in Dallas, then go up to the Jets. I thought the value laid there with the Jets, so I'm riding Jets +6 for me.
I'll tell you, man, I really like the Jets +6. Okay, now I don't have a play in this game, but I want to make sure that I put it in my notes that I like the Jets +6. And I'll tell you the only reason why I didn't take it. They say scared money don't make money, but in this situation, I'm not too concerned about not making it here because I would hate for this to be the game where that offensive line gets it together.
Yes.
Because I'll tell you what, if that offensive line gets it together, which I don't think it'll happen, but if they do, they just happen to play a really solid game, then this is going to be a blowout because, up and down, the Bengals just have a much, much better team on paper. And there's a reason why they made it to the Super Bowl last year. Obviously, luck had a little bit to do with it, but it was also a lot of these big name players making big plays, and they're still there. The issue has really been the ability to protect Joe Burrow, and they haven't been able to do that, which doesn't give him time to throw the ball. And when you don't have time to throw the ball, you don't have time to get the ball to your big, Jamar Chase and all those other guys out there, Higgins. So for that reason alone, I don't have a play, but I do have to say that just based off the way that offensive line has been playing, I like the Jets +6, but I have no play.
Yeah, I'm just going to ride the Jets here. You can flip it the other way that basically the Bengals have come against probably the two best pass rushers in the league in, their first two opening weeks, a healthy TJ Watt and then Micah Parsons. So maybe that line isn't as atrocious as we've seen. They've just, come up against not two of probably the best, pass rushers in the league, but both will probably go down as two of the best pass rushers in the NFL in this era. So, maybe that and the Bengals, come up against a little bit lighter of a, pass rush here. Maybe they hold up. Maybe that offense gets going. But I just want to see it. And I just thought 6 was too much. I got one player prop, Garrett Wilson, who I thought has looked pretty solid 2 weeks in a row in creating space and getting open. Big target as well. Wilson, touchdown +210. I thought that was pretty good value. Anytime touchdown +210 for Garrett Wilson. The Jets seem to like to throw. No matter who the quarterback is, so I'm going to ride that and +210 for Garrett Wilson, anytime touchdown for me, plus my New York Jets +6. All right, let's go to the Eagles and the Commanders. Philadelphia now up to a 6.5 point favorite in this game. Speaking of taking bad teams, this is, I'm avoiding the trap on taking like the Eagles after we just saw them wreck the Vikings on Monday night. But I'm also being aggressive in taking teams that I think are completely atrocious, especially defensively versus Eagles team. But once again, I just thought 6.5, even granted that there will probably be more Phillies fans in the stands than Washington fans, but nonetheless, I just thought 6.5 was a little bit too much as a road dog here, or home dog here. So I'm grabbing the Commanders. I can't give you expertise and analysis that the Commanders are going to be capable of even playing with Philly here. It just seems like 6.5 is too much. And if Washington has shown anything on the season, they have been able to hit big plays. Now, they also turn the ball over a ton, and the defense doesn't stop anybody. But they have hit big plays, and if you can hit big plays, that usually means you can cover spreads like 6.5. So I think that's my only sort of thing I'm relying on here. What do you see with the Eagles and Commanders?
Now, I got really lucky with this game. I was logging into my sports betting app on Tuesday early in the morning just to see if I had hit any of my bets the night before. And I noticed that they had this line and it's not super favorable, but it's at -4.
Yeah.
And immediately I jumped on it. I took Philly -4. This was on Tuesday, and as of now, it's at 6.5. So I'm gonna ride with my own line that I took, Philly -4. But I got to be honest with you. I know you like Washington plus 6.5, and Wentz, he seems to be a good fit for Washington. He's playing better than he did last year. Now, granted, it's early in the season, and he hasn't faced the most potent of teams
Yes.
here to speak of, but. I feel like it built some confidence in it, and it's good for him, even when he does face the good teams. So I get your logic and all that, but I still like Philly even at 6.5. I think they can win this game by multiple touchdowns. I think they're just much better. But again, I'm going to write the -4 that I picked them up at, and that's my only play for this game.
I wouldn't take it if Washington was only +4. The only reason I'm grabbing this is that 6.5 number just seems extreme, especially for a team that's shown that they enjoy back end fourth quarter meaningless touchdowns. That's probably the world that Carson Wentz lives in. Maybe the new Kirk Cousins of meaningless stats and touchdowns, so I'm going to grab the 6.5. Honestly, if you have the 4, you could look at middling that thing and have the 6.5. It's probably not quite a wide enough margin, but if you look at that like in game.
About hedging it?
Yeah.
I thought about it, but as you mentioned, I thought that it'd probably be best suited for like an in-game bet.
Yeah. If you and Philly gets off to a hot start and you can get like 10, 11, because judging from where this number is, from where it opened, they're going to be really quick to sort of jump Philly's spread up. So that would definitely be an option if anybody got that, 4. I got A.J. Brown over 74.5 receiving yards at -115 as well. They've just gone to him basically all the time. And I think if anyone has watched this Washington secondary, I don't think A.J. Brown is going to have a difficult time hitting that 75-yard mark in this one. Fletcher Cox, over 0.75 sacks, so he does have to get the full sack. But Carson Wentz will give you sacks. So I really like that one. That's at +235 too, so you get a nice little almost 2.5 to 1 on Fletcher Cox getting a sack. And then lastly, even money, Carson Wentz, Jalen Hurts, head-to-head passing yards. I got Carson Wentz at +100. I mentioned it. Yeah, you saw it last week with Philly. They threw all over the place that first half. Second half, they shut that down and just sort of grinded and didn't pass, for all that many yards. Now, granted, they were getting 8 yards of play on the ground versus the Minnesota Vikings, but nonetheless, Washington has shown the want to of racking up meaningless yards. So I thought an even money head-to-head passing yards battle, Wentz, Hurts. You assume Washington will be behind most of the game, so you assume Wentz will be jacking the ball all over the place. Plus, not to mention, Washington has not shown any reason to want to run the ball all that much, despite having a pretty solid running back in Gibson. But they seem to want to pass with their receivers. I understand it. So head-to-head Wentz, even money passing yard prop on that one as well for me in that game. So let's move on to the next one. Saints, Panthers. I got to admit, I think this is going to be my last ride on the merry-go-round with the Carolina Panthers. I'm going to give them one more go here, and then they're probably going to be on the do not bet list, at least for a little while. That being said, they are 1-1 with me against the spread. Luckily I got that 2.5 number in the opening week, but anybody who didn't get that number got burned a little bit. I got one bet in this game, that's Carolina plus the 2.5. I'm just hedging at home. The Saints on the road after that, physical game versus Tampa Bay. Carolina needs this game. 0-2 now. Their coach is just taking on water every which way. ESPN was breaking down how they were telling off their plays beforehand the other day. Carolina 2.5 at home. I'm just going to ride with it and give Carolina one last ride that they can make this season a successful season.
I like your logic, and I thought about going that way, but I actually ended up going the opposite way here. And it's because they cost me week 1 and week 2. So I'm actually going to ride here with New Orleans. I feel like they're the better team here. Now, can they put that on the field? I'm not sure, which is why I was a little hesitant to make a bet here. But I got New Orleans here at -2.5, and I've got a couple prop bets here also. I got Michael Thomas anytime touchdown at +160. I've got DJ Moore anytime touchdown at +155, and I've got Baker Mayfield over 10.5 rushing yards at +115.
All right. So, any analysis in this game, or two bad teams playing each other?
Just based off what we've seen, I know it's a very small sample size, but 2 weeks in, yeah, both these teams seem to be struggling. For Carolina, they really haven't been implementing McCaffrey as we thought. They tried a little bit more last week, but it seemed like it was a little too late. And for New Orleans, last week they looked really bad. Week 1, they didn't look as bad. They looked at least, somewhat comparable to what we saw from them at the end of last year. So I'm just going to assume that last week is a little bit of a fluke going up against divisional opponent. Both of them look pretty bad. And if that's the case, then I can expect their defense to step up this game, which means that James Winston won't have to do much. And if that's the case, I think I also heard McCaffrey is questionable. I'm not sure if he's going to play or not, but just the fact that he's questionable starts raising red flags for me. So just for those reasons, I'm going to take the New Orleans Saints at -2.5.
Yeah, Kamara is probably going to be a go as well for the Saints. At this point, I don't know how much that helps. He hasn't looked like Alvin Kamara for, probably 2 years now as well. But it's certainly at anything they can bring on offense that has ever sort of been a weapon, I think the Saints need to do, because offensively, they looked so bad versus that Tampa Bay Bucs team. And, Tampa Bay's defense, granted, very good, but you even go back to that game versus the Falcons in week 1. Basically, they were atrocious for 3.5 quarters, and, the last 3 dives versus the Falcons, they managed to get something, but it's basically been, let's just say, 7 quarters of terrible offensive play, 1 quarter of good offensive play so far from what we've seen from the Saints. So hard to trust anything in that game. This next game is interesting because basically this line moved from when I was doing my picks to when I wrapped up my picks and I went back in. The Jags versus the Chargers was basically a 7-point spread, and now it's down to 3. I can't find any information, but something has to be way different, because I'm not buying that.
Herbert.
Yeah. Everybody in the world put so much money on the Jags that it dropped the line basically 4 points. I'm assuming somebody knows something about who's starting at quarterback for the Chargers in this one, because the only way that line drops 4 points in basically 5 hours is if, Chase Daniel is playing quarterback and not Justin Herbert. Or they just think Chase Daniel is playing quarterback and not Herbert, or someone has seen something and Justin Herbert is really, really hurt and can't throw the
Somebody
football.
got a hold of his MRI.
Yeah. I don't even know what to say, because I was sort of really big on the Jags at +7. I'm not quite as favorable on the Jaguars at 3. So basically, if you got these 7s, I would say go after that very, very hard. 3, I can't be as bold. So what do you have in this game?
I'll tell you what, I've got one prop bet for this game, and a lot of it was because of the uncertainty coming into this game with injuries. I do like the way Jacksonville's been playing. I think that they're a little I think we underrated them also. I think they're a little bit better than we gave them credit for. All that being said, this Chargers team is also good. The question is, are they going to have their guys? Well, we know Keenan Allen's banged up. We know that Herbert's banged up. So there's concerns. For that reason, I have one prop bet for this game, and that's Christian Kirk over 61.5 yards at -110. He's the go-to guy. He's the guy who's going to get all the targets. And not just that, we've seen him play really, really good football. I was actually very impressed with his performances over the last 2 weeks. I was one of those people that was confused during the offseason signing at how much money he got paid. But again, I said it, I think last week, he got paid based off of fit, not so much based off his career performances. So, he's having a good year so far. If it can continue, I think he's the guy to target in this game here. Because if the Jaguars are going to do anything through the air, more than likely it's going to be through Kirk. So Kirk over 61.5 yards, so -110.
Yeah, I would just say, based on that. Right now, I would hammer all Christian Kirk over stats because it doesn't seem like the sports books have adjusted. They seem to be more so playing off what he's been in the past with Arizona, and they haven't seemed to make that adjustment quite yet on Christian Kirk. The first 2 weeks of the season, the numbers look low again. So, I mean, until they start adjusting and putting him, in the same territory as like an A.J. Brown type numbers where it's more like 75 over under, I would just hammer Christian Kirk over player props because it looks like the Jags are going to utilize him every which way and throw the ball to him. The Jags offense looks 400 times better than it did the year before. And, I saw some throws from Trevor Lawrence that last week that you can start to see that they're going to have a really, really good quarterback on their hands. So, I got nothing in this game now with the spread at 3. I don't think I'd take the Jags at 3. I'd think about it, but 3 just seems too low. You give me that touchdown, I'm on it all day long. So maybe if Herbert news comes out different than what maybe they're hedging that it's going to be or something, and it climbs back up to that sort of 6 or 7 territory, I'd look at both, the spread and the money line for the Jags because I think that would be good value. But at 3, it's not quite as good a value. All right, let's move to the Rams Cardinals. Rams 3.5-point favorites, and I'm not going to lie, I'm jumping right all on this Rams thing, minus the 3.5. This is my biggest bet. I'm putting $750 on the Rams on this one because I think they go there, annihilate this Cardinals team. We talked about the Saints playing basically 7 bad quarters, 1 good quarter. The Cardinals are pretty much the same. They played 7 bad quarters, 1 good quarter. I know the Rams have not been trustworthy, at least against the spread so far this year, but I think they dominate this Cardinals team. The Cardinals defense did not get any better, and I think the Rams will be much smarter than Josh McDaniels was in the second half of that game, and I think he'll run it up as well versus Cardinals team. So I like the Rams and the Rams big. No player props for me, just Rams. I think they put it on this Cardinals team here a little bit. You saw Robinson get involved a little bit more, and if they can get him to get 50, 60 yards a game, mixed with Cooper Kupp, who I still think we're overused. I get why you overuse him, but they're throwing him a lot of balls very early in the season. So, but I'm all about the Rams at minus 3.5 on this one. So, where are you looking, Rams, Cardinals?
I normally don't like to take plays on my team. For one, it's kind of homerism, to just listen to someone who's a fan of a particular team talk about how much he likes this, how much he likes that. So I normally don't like to, but I tell you what, I got a couple bets here. Now I know that the numbers have changed. This is probably the most favorable line I've seen for the Rams so far this season. Yeah. And I think it's probably a good time to jump on it right now. I know there's a little bit of concern, especially last week after the way they played against Atlanta, but in all reality, what that game really was the Rams came out and they were dominant. And after that, they started to try and implement things that they've been lacking on. For example, getting Robinson more involved in the game, getting Akers more involved in the game. And as they tried to work things out, Atlanta made a bit of a comeback, but I'm not worried. Okay, so I'll tell you what my bets are for this game. I got LA Rams -3.5. I've got LA Rams first half at -3. And then there was one that I wasn't too sure about, but I've got a pretty good feeling about it. Tyler Higbee, anytime touchdown at +150. You see him as a big target, especially down in the when you get in the red zone. And I think that he's going to get more involved, especially in this game. I'm not too concerned about the defense of the Rams. They seem to play pretty well against Kyle Murray and this Arizona team. So I think the Rams are due for one here. And I think if you're going to take the Rams anytime this season, this is probably the best time to take them right now because this is probably the most beneficial spread they've had so far this season.
Yeah, definitely so. All right, let's move on to our next game. And I'm curious to talk this one out because I'm scared I'm on the wrong side here. And I just need to trust my eyes. But
I know which game it is. You don't even have to say.
Atlanta's at Seattle. We already discussed this a little bit. I even saw a line where Atlanta ended up favored. So, it's one.
Doesn't surprise me.
But I'm sure they've also trusted their eyes. And Atlanta's, despite being 0-2 and Seattle being 1-1, Atlanta's looked like the much more capable team. Basically, Seattle put together a drive and a half in that Denver game and then watched Denver make a comedy of errors to lose that game. And then that San Francisco game, Seattle was so bad. They weren't good defensively. They were just atrocious offensively. They haven't gotten their running game going all season long. I'm on Seattle here, but it's one of those where I'm like, Atlanta's the better team. I factored in the logic that they're double West Coast road, played at the Rams, played a hard, tough game versus the Rams, almost made that full comeback. Now they go up to the Pacific Northwest, play Seattle. Seattle might be a different team at home, but, I'm also ready to take Seattle and then just be pissed off at myself as I watch this team throw 2-yard passes for, 3 hours and can't move the ball at all. So how did you look at this game? Because it's one of those where I think I'm going to end up betting and just smack myself the whole time for taking Seattle because I haven't really seen anything that tells me this is a good football team.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. I like Atlanta. I think that Atlanta is probably a more balanced team here. I feel like their execution has been more balanced. But with Seattle playing at home and the way they played for that opening night game, I just feel like the crowd can really hype up this defense. Now I know that they've got some injuries in that secondary, but Penny to me is the missing link here. Okay, if they can really start to try and implement that running attack. Gino did a pretty good job in that first week at managing the game. That's what they need from him. They need him to manage the game. They need to really get Penny going. Penny to me is a potential star in the making. From what I've seen, he's very explosive. He can break off big plays. He puts his head down and rams through defenders. And I'd say he's hard to bring down, but they just haven't really tried to implement him. And I don't know. Again, just like the Rams did, Henderson ran pretty well against this Atlanta defense. Akers ran pretty well against this Atlanta defense. So I'm going to assume that they're going to go really run heavy in this game. And for that reason alone, I like Seattle at -1 here. Not huge. I mean, just a 1-point spread, but value-wise, didn't make much difference taking the money line here. So I'm taking Seattle -1. I got a couple of prop bets in this game too. I feel that it's going to be a tight game, competitive, a lot of back and forth. So I've got London here, anytime touchdown at +190. I got Cordero Patterson over 63.5 rushing and receiving yards combined at -115. He seems to be the Swiss Army knife for that team. And I've also got Cordero Patterson at over 15.5 receiving yards at -110.
Yeah, you mentioned I got Seattle -1. I'm just going to go out on a limb, but I think the better bet here is Rashard Penny 100+ rushing yards is 8.8 to 1. So that's plus 880. If Seattle's going to win this game, it's because they finally get Penny going in the run game. You mentioned it. The Falcons have been poor against the run so far, so this is basically
your shot to get going.
Yeah, Seattle's chance to get the running game going, sort of put Geno back into the role that he's adequate at. Like, good would probably be a bit extreme, but adequate enough to be a professional quarterback.
Formidable.
On a small basis. But Penny plus 100 rushing yards plus 880, I think is really, really good value. And then DraftKings had a special, Drake London and DK Metcalf, 80+ receiving yards, 8 to 1. For some reason, Marcus Mariota doesn't know Kyle Pitts is on the football field.
I know. What's going on there?
How do you miss a 6'6" tight end with blazing speed? I don't know. But he seems to like Drake London a lot. So I think Drake hits at 80+ receiving yards. Metcalf and Lockett, it is what it is. You knew what you were sort of getting when Geno was going to be the quarterback, but maybe this is the game versus Atlanta that he can go off a little bit. They also gave up, plenty of yards to Cooper Kupp, plenty of yards to Allen Robinson, so maybe DK could get off the schneid as well. I thought at 8 to 1, London, Metcalf, both 80+ receiving yards. Pretty good value in that one. So Penny plus 100 rushing yards, plus 880. Metcalf, London, 80+ receiving yards, 800, and then I'm just going to ride that Seahawks -1 and be angry at myself when they score,
Me too.
9 points and have 250 yards rushing, and we're discussing how terrible the Seahawks offense is, and when are they going to put Drew Lock and his bad interception rate in the game to at least move the ball downfield?
Careful what you wish for, man.
All right, let's go to Packers-Bucks next up. Bucks -1 in this game, and quite honestly, the only bet I have in this game, and it probably will sum up what I think about this, Green Bay, Tampa, over 9.5 punts in this game, even money. So I have no clue how this game's going to play out. Tampa basically is signing receivers off the street so they can line up receivers. Their offense has looked terrible anyway. Green Bay's defense probably will get after Brady a little bit, and Tampa's porous offensive line. And then Tampa's defense, I'm sure, can shut down this Green Bay offense. So basically, I have no way of handicapping this game because I don't know how this game's going to play out. I'm curious if you have some sort of read on it.
It's funny because I was really curious to hear your analysis for this game.
Yeah, over and you can't. Punts.
Listen, it's about to get better here. My play for this game. I have one play for this game, okay, and I'm not even sure about that. This is just what I felt made the most sense. Under 42.
Yeah.
I'm not playing it, but that was the only thing that I thought about taking here. Both of these offenses have struggled. Green Bay. Part of it was the receivers in that first game. They got going a little bit the second game, but even then, they still didn't look like the Green Bay that we're accustomed to seeing. It's not the same Aaron Rodgers, and it's because he doesn't have the same weapons. Tampa Bay, on the other hand, they looked really bad for, 3 3/4 of the game.
Basically, until Jameis decided he no longer wanted to play a close football game and literally threw the ball to Tampa Bay on 4 straight possessions.
Yeah. And it's very unfortunate because, you had Brady coming back and it gave Tampa Bay and Tampa Bay fans, a reason for hope again that they had a shot to make another run. But the way that they're playing on offense, I know they're dealing with a lot of injuries, a lot of in and outs on offense, but the defense is still good. So that's the only reason why I was tempted to play that under 42. But I think I'm just going to do a pass for this game and just kind of see what happens next week.
Quite honestly, you could take an alternate total, and I think it would be good value to drop it as low as they would give you, because you could tell me this thing could be 9-6, and I would not be all that stunned that these teams just trade a couple field goals and can't get anything going. So,
Kind of like that San Francisco Green Bay game
yeah,
in the playoffs.
exactly. Granted, the weather will be better, but nonetheless,
But the weapons won't be.
yeah, I would really look at alternate total and see how low you can take that and see what sort of odds you can get for it. Because even to like under 30, I think definitely would be play in this game. You would have a very hard time convincing me that these teams are both going to score multiple touchdowns on the day. Just based on their defenses and what their offenses has looked at.
Now, don't get us wrong; it could definitely happen.
Oh yeah,
But,
both these
I
teams
mean,
can also turn the ball over 5 times and have
Correct.
the ball on the 20-yard line each time. So
I think the probability favors them not performing up to the standard that we're used to seeing, and more to the standard that they've been playing over the last couple of weeks.
And the only thing with that is you got 2 quarterbacks who are not turnover prone, but
Yep.
still, nonetheless, the way these defenses will probably pressure said quarterbacks, that changes every quarterback's sort of play style, nonetheless. So, fun analysis on Green Bay, Tampa Bay. I am curious to watch it. I will admit. I am just curious what we're going to get out of this. I don't know.
You say that now, 3 quarters into it, you're going to be like, why am I wasting my time on this game?
Well, that's the thing. I don't even know how much we'll be looking at this game like when these teams are in the playoff and factoring it in. Because I think both these teams will be totally different teams, in 4
Come
months.
postseason, yeah.
So it's probably already a game you're crossing off. Like Tampa has no weapons. Green Bay's trying to figure out what their weapons are. And it's just sort of one of those weird games where it's interesting to watch and see how it plays out, but it probably won't mean anything later on in the season. I don't think you're going to go back and if these teams match up in the playoffs. You remember in week 3 when... All right, let's move on to the next one. And this one I'm more interested in. 49ers at the Broncos. This is... I think this is the trap of all traps because I do not have it in my bets. But I can already feel my brain ready to jump on those 49ers and that 1.5 point line here. It probably depends how bad or good that, 1 o'clock session goes. But if it's bad, I'm probably definitely make-up betting on the 49ers. And if it's good, I probably go, I'm in the green. I'm good. I'm going to bet on the 49ers. So I didn't put it down, but I very much want to take these 49ers. And this is nothing from I've seen from the Broncos organization, from coaching on the sideline to their offensive playing, makes me think the Broncos can handle this San Francisco 49ers defense. But I don't know. Something tells me we're going to get a good Broncos game and one of those terrible Shanahan games where I start spitting out his overall coaching record and how it's worse than, 200 billion coaches. But what do you make of San Francisco, Denver here?
To me, this is probably one of the more interesting games to watch. This is going to be the first game where Jimmy G's starting from the beginning of the game. Now, I know that we've got a pretty good sample size when it comes to Jimmy G and the 49ers, but we don't have a good sample size with Jimmy G after he was made the backup, after he was, attempted to be traded, after the pay cut, which now he's making that money again. We don't know how much that's going to mess with the psyche. He wasn't quite himself last week, at least compared to what we were used to seeing from him. But even with all that being said, a team that I was really high on this season, the Broncos, have shown me absolutely nothing. Russell Wilson seems to be a shell of himself. And now I do have hope for him and for Broncos Nation that they'll be able to get it together. But I don't think against the San Francisco team is the time to do it. So my only play here is San Francisco minus 1.5. And even then, I'm not too bullish on it.
Yeah. I got 2 bets in this, and the aforementioned bet I'm going to make on San Francisco. You probably should just plug that in. But on Thursdays and Fridays, I have a much more discipline than when I'm in the heat of it on Sunday, and I just want to throw bets down left and right. So Thursday and Friday discipline, very, very good. No bet on the Niners right now, even though I really, really like it.
There'll be a bet.
Yeah, there'll be a bet. I'll probably start throwing them out at you at, I don't know, 350 or so. Cortland Sutton touchdown plus 190. Judy's banged up. I don't think they'll get much on the ground versus this Niners team, and I think Sutton will hit one here. So I thought plus 190 was pretty good value. Russell Wilson interception minus 105. The Broncos line hasn't been great. San Francisco's pass rush should get to him. I know Russ doesn't throw a ton of picks, but from what I've seen in the pressure getting to him, I think he coughs one up in this game. So I got Sutton touchdown 190, Wilson interception minus 105 for me in this game. All right, let's move to the Monday night game. Why, I don't know, other than these two are in big markets. Neither of these have played what I'd call a fun game to watch. Granted,
Cooper Rush.
A couple of the Giants games have been entertaining in the sense that they were close, but they aren't exactly a barrel of excitement to watch. It's basically you're watching Saquon Barkley rush for 5 yards and Daniel Jones try not to do something stupid. And the Cowboys' game plan last week was basically hand the ball off for 3 yards and let Cooper Rush throw a swing pass. One for the Giants here. I didn't take anything in this. I probably lean Cowboys, and maybe by Monday night, I'll be a little bit more aggressive on Cowboys. My tipping point is if you're looking at these teams, Cowboys defense is probably head and shoulders above anybody else's unit between these four. Offensively, I think it's sort of a wash. You sort of got the same type thing. Okay, running backs, quarterbacks who, receivers, line, and basically Cowboys defense been really good this year. Giants defense, it's aggressive. I don't know if I'd go...
A little better than last year.
Yeah, it's aggressive. I don't know if I'd go good, but they at least try to cause havoc. Nonetheless,
this is how you put a good spin on it. Instead of saying good, you say better than last year.
Better than last year.
That's a positive spin on it.
Yeah, but we're 2 weeks in. I'm not 100% sold it's better than last year. Now, granted, if the Giants win this game, they got the Bears next week. They possibly might be the worst 4-0 team of all time. So
it's possible.
Nonetheless, I got two bets in this game. It probably sums it all up. I got Daniel Jones interception, Cooper Rush interception. So I don't know if that's better or worse than the over 9.5 punts in Tampa Bay, Green Bay, but I haven't pulled the trigger on the Cowboys. But Monday night, maybe I convince myself that defense will make enough happen to win this. And I don't want to live in a world where this Giants team possibly is 4-0, I think.
I tell you right now, the stark difference between those two type of bets you made between Green Bay, Tampa Bay, and Dallas, New York, just tells me the respect you have for the quarterbacks in the other game is that you don't think they can drive enough to score touchdowns, but you also don't think they're bad enough to turn it over. Whereas in this game, let's just take the picks.
I know exactly what's going to happen in this one.
I actually only have one pick in this game, and I'm sure that I'll end up making more for Monday because, it's the only game on Monday night. So there's going to be more bets. But the only bet that I feel comfortable talking about in public.
When we lose on San Francisco at the 4 o'clock, we need makeup betting. So
exactly. The only bet that I feel comfortable here, speaking about publicly here, I have Jones over a half an interception at minus 120, and that's my only play for this game.
Well, that might just be our all-in maneuver. We just take Jones interception for very large money.
I might have to, depending on how Sunday goes.
Yeah, I know. All right, that wraps up our straight bets. I got a handful of parlays to go over and teasers. I got a 3-leg parlay with the over in the Vikings Lions game over 52.5, over 53 in the Bills Dolphins, and Eagles Commanders over 47.5. So a 3-leg parlay on that one at 6-1. I'm also going to make the mistake of teasing all these over and unders as well. So I get to lose twice on this when somebody doesn't live up to expectations. I'm staring at Eagles Commanders to be the game that probably screws me over. But nonetheless, tease at 6 points, so it becomes 46.5 for Lions Vikings, 47 for Bills Dolphins, and 41.5 for Eagles Commanders. Another 6 point tease. Vikings, pick 'em. Rams, plus 2.5. Niners, plus 4.5 on a 3-team 6 point tease at 160 for that one. My underdog, moneyline parlay. Little difficult to find stuff once they move my Jags line down to plus 130. The value sort of emptied out there. So sadly, Commanders Colts is my 2-team money line parlay. Don't have a lot of faith in that one, but nonetheless, Commanders Colts plus 740 in that one. I got a 2-leg parlay of head-to-head. Davis Mills over passing yards versus Justin Field, and Jared Goff over passing yards versus Kirk Cousins. That's 387 on that 2-leg parlay. Another 2-leg parlay, Henry over 84.5 rushing yards, Taylor over 85.5 rushing yards. That's plus 249 on that 2-leg parlay. And then lastly, Penny over 51.5 rushing yards, Cook over 77.5 rushing yards. That's plus 256 on that one. I got, this is a fun one, same game interception parlay, Allen and Tagovailoa, both in interception, plus 210 in that one. Another one, passing touchdown parlay, Wentz over 1.5, Carr over 1.5 touchdowns. That's plus 287. Really like that one with Wentz and Carr both over 1.5 touchdowns. Then in my next one, Stafford and Goff, both over 1.5 touchdowns in a 2-leg parlay at plus 205. So loaded up with a handful of player prop 2-leg parlays on that one. Anything else you got for us, Achilles?
I got a couple of parlays here, and I'm going to go ahead and share these now. Some of these are just more insurance than anything in case we get some backdoor covers. But I got a 3-pick parlay here: Eagles money line, Chiefs money line, Rams money line plus 194. I've got a 4-pick parlay here, prop pick: Jamar Chase anytime touchdown, Stephon Diggs anytime touchdown, AJ Brown and Cooper Kupp anytime touchdown at plus 860. I've got a 2-pick parlay here: Houston Texans plus 2.5, and the Philadelphia Eagles at -4 at plus 272.
All right, so that wraps up NFL Week 3. We'll be back on Tuesday to recap all the games on the day. Be sure to like and subscribe and watch all our episodes that are on here, college football and dynamite. David, you don't want to miss those. You don't want to miss our recap and review show on Tuesday. Like and subscribe. That's our show, and we're out.